My favorite home console is the PS1, and my favorite genre is survival horror. So, as you can imagine, one of my favorite games of all time is Silent Hill. Oh, I also love Resident Evil. That too. And of course, Resident Evil 4 is one of the most important games of all time. It changed what survival horror was from the ground up. Borderline reinvented the design of third-person shooters and arguably shook up the whole medium of gaming to its core. And what do you know? It's getting a ground-up remake releasing at the end of this week. But what if you're not a Resident Evil expert? If you don't have the time to play all the games before this one? Or if you don't want to have to play all of the scary ones before the silly one? Well, don't fret. Today I'm going to be filling you in on everything you need to know about the events of the series leading up to Resident Evil 4. Why only 4? Because I want to be able to do this again when Resident Evil 9 comes out. Don't hate the player, hate the game. And as this is exploration, at the end we'll go a little deeper into what's missing from this story, where it could go, and if it's even good. Let's get into it. Spoiler for every single game in the series before 4, and also Resident Evil 8. Let's cast ourselves back to 1919, when Mother Miranda's daughter dies from the Spanish flu. During Miranda's subsequent period of depression, she becomes infected with the special fungus known as mold, and makes it her mission to use the mold to bring her daughter back to life. The plan is to create a mold-human hybrid that could serve as a vessel for her child to possess, so she started doing experiments with the Resident Evil village nearby for the next 100 years or so. In the 1950s, Miranda met Oswald Spencer, mentoring him and making him part of the experiments, making him become very interested in the idea of human mutation. He eventually went out on his own to pursue larger goals than bringing back one dead child. He wanted to reach the next stage in human evolution. Himself and his team of scientists consisting of Ed Ashford, James Marcus, and Brandon Bailey eventually found the progenitor virus in West Africa and created the Umbrella Corporation. Our boy Oswell, of course, serving as CEO. Now moving into the 60s, two major events take place, Project W and Project Code Veronica. They were both similar in their intent though, with the aim of creating superhumans with genetically modified versions of the progenitor virus. Code Veronica specifically sees Umbrella trying to create a successor to Ashford, as there is only one member of the Ashford family left alive. This leads to the births of Alfred and Alexia Ashford. Project W lasted a lot longer, consisting of adopting children by various means, giving them all the name Wesker, and mentoring their progress as they grow. Notable Weskers include Albert and Alex. That's 2 games and 4 A names. In the 70s, they finally managed to create something tangible from the progenitor virus. By combining it with leech DNA, they create the Tyrant virus, or T-virus. This virus is the one we see in the first few games. When infected, you lose all mental capacity and begin to hunt down and eat nearby creatures. It also makes you very, very hard to kill. Sometimes though, the virus creates variants like paleheads and lickers that have different abilities. In a few cases though, the victim gains superhuman abilities whilst keeping control of their mind somewhat, so kind of a success. The virologist responsible for the discovery, James Marcus, ended up being betrayed by Spencer, who had a young scientist named William Birkin and Albert Wesker of Project W take the research to the Arklay Mountains. Marcus continued his research nonetheless, but is soon killed off, seemingly by Albert Wesker. Another decade starts. In the 80s, the T. Veronica virus was created by Alexia Ashford. She used it on her kind of sort of father, Alexander Ashford. As a result, he turned into a monster. She then uses it on herself and goes into cryosleep. The T. Veronica virus is basically the same as the T virus, but has a lot more aggressive mutations. But the big difference is that if the victim spends long enough infected with this version of the virus, they regain some of their mental functions. With James Marcus out of the picture, William Birkin has gained a lot more power in Umbrella, and since we last saw him, he's created both the Hunter and the infamous Tyrant, introducing BOWs to the story, Bioorganic Weapons. And if you're wondering if he'd run out of things to do at this point, he discovers the Golgotha virus, the G virus, and begins feverishly working on that. The G virus is a completely different virus. It doesn't create zombies at all. In fact, those infected don't even resemble humans anymore. It also provides the infected with the ability to regenerate. When part of the body is damaged, the virus mutates to fix it, so expect to see a lot of creatures with lots of limbs. Moving way ahead to 1998. Great year, by the way, unless you're a character in the original Resident Evil or Resident Evil 0. You see, when James Marcus was killed, his body merged with the Queen Leech he was working with at the time, and of course, became a horrifying monster. He apparently had enough control to know to target Umbrella. During his subsequent rampage, he attacks the Ecliptic Express, which results in the passengers being infected with the T-virus. Not long after, STARS, the Special Tactics and Rescue Services, a name totally not made up just so they could be called STARS, sends their Bravo team member Rebecca Chambers to the train to capture the prisoner Billy Cohen. But they're met by an Umbrella team who have also been sent to the train to try and regain some control. It's a whole mess. Billy and Rebecca are forced to work together to stop the train before it crashes. It's a shame this game sucks, because switching between two playable characters is a cool idea. The two eventually end up in an abandoned Umbrella research facility filled with infected, eventually killing the Marcus monster and escaping just as Albert Wesker blows the place up. Rebecca lets Billy go free and heads towards a nearby mansion. The Queen Leech's attacks led to T-virus infections spreading all the way through the Arklay Mountains. STARS Alpha Team unfortunately discovers this when they head there to find out what happened to the Bravo team. They're immediately attacked by Cerberus dogs that were created by a very specific version of the virus. The only survivors are Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, and Barry Burton, joined by Albert Wesker, who none of them know is evil. Yet. They take shelter in the Spencer Mansion, where they think they're safe. Little do they know, they've just entered the world of survival horror. Chris and Jill are separated and spend the night trying to survive the monsters infesting the building. In the process, Chris meets Rebecca Chambers, who helps him out. As for Jill, her main man is Barry. Unfortunately for her, Wesker forces Barry to do his bidding by telling him he was holding his family hostage. So Barry turns on Jill. Wesker then releases a dangerous tyrant that stabs him and tries to attack our heroes. However, one of them blows the monster up and everyone escapes, just in time for the mansion to self-destruct, as mansions tend to do. Upon escaping the mansion, the survivors naturally demand an investigation into Umbrella, resulting in the STARS group being disbanded. So they start their own investigation. Jill starts in Raccoon City whilst Chris travels to Europe. Shortly after, with no time jump as this was in the same year, Umbrella decides that Birkin's projects are a liability, so they send a team, led by Hunk, to Birkin's lab to try and get the G-virus from him. It doesn't go to plan. He fights back and a member of the security team shoots him. As he lies dying, he injects himself with the G-virus, mutating into a monster and going on a rampage. Whoa, he's right behind me, isn't he? In the ensuing chaos, some vials containing T-virus are consumed by rats and subsequently transported into Raccoon City's drinking water. What is this, Parasite Eve? Hunk is the only survivor from the security team and manages to escape with a small sample of G-virus. The contaminated water leads to an outbreak in Raccoon City, which takes us into Resident Evil 2 and 3. Jill is still investigating Umbrella when the outbreak starts, but she has bigger problems to deal with, as at the same time they send a security team to take care of Birkin, Umbrella sends out a special tyrant known as Nemesis to wipe out the remaining STARS members. Jill and Brad Vickers try to escape the monster, but the latter is killed, leaving Jill to frantically try to escape the monster. She eventually finds the Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasure Service and reluctantly works with them to escape the city. It doesn't go well, and Jill has a few more big and bigger fights with the monster before getting infected and passing out. UBCS member Carlos Oliveira cures Jill and she gets back down to business. But it's not the best time to wake up from a nap, as the government has just announced that they're going to nuke the entire city in an attempt to contain the outbreak. Jill manages to finish Nemesis off for good in pretty dramatic fashion, and her and Carlos get out of Dodge. Now, the next plotline is the most relevant to Resident Evil 4. Leon Kennedy enters the city the day of the outbreak, bright-eyed and fresh-faced, ready to start his first day at the Raccoon City Police Department. So bright-eyed, in fact, that he fully ignores some pretty prescient warnings to stay away. At the same time, Claire Redfield arrives in Raccoon to find her brother Chris, who apparently didn't tell a single person what he was doing before going to another continent. Leon and Claire try to team up, but are split up. Claire ends up meeting Birkin's daughter Sherry. She quickly discovers the girl is infected and tries to save her by finding a cure. Leon runs into the mysterious Ada Wong, who claims to be investigating Umbrella. Eventually, all four of them make their way through the RCPD station and find themselves in the sewers, which leads to the secret underground lab that the virus originated from. All the while surviving various monsters, including the rampaging Birkin. Claire is able to find a vaccine for Sherry, and Leon is betrayed by Ada, who steals a sample of the G-Virus before falling to her death. Leon, Claire, and Sherry meet on the train out of the facility before it self-destructs, and the city is wiped off the face of the planet. Now, that's the end of Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3, and all you technically need to know about Leon's story before starting Resident Evil 4, but there is more. A few spin-off titles came out between Resident Evil 3 and Resident Evil 4, starting with the light gun game Resident Evil Survivor. Something you'll notice here is that basically everyone between Resident Evil 1 and 4 wants to take Umbrella down. As such, Leon sends Agent Ark Thompson to Sheena Island, which is owned by Umbrella. Once the researchers on the island catch wind of their plans to take them down, they intentionally cause an outbreak on the island to cover their tracks. And what's more, Goldman has a classic case of plot-relevant amnesia. But even so, he manages to succeed, taking out a tyrant released to kill him and rescuing 2 uninfected children he finds on the island. Code Veronica also takes place between 3 and 4. After the events in Raccoon City, Claire goes to Europe to try and find her brother Chris. She ends up being captured by Umbrella and taken to Rockfort Island, where Alfred Ashford is running the show with his sister in cryosleep. He even occasionally pretends to be her, for some reason. Claire manages to escape and discovers yet another T-virus outbreak, making you wonder how much Umbrella is vetting their scientists and security. She makes her way off the island with a new pal named Steve Burnside, before being forced to stop at an Antarctic outpost, as often happens. Chris Redfield catches wind of Claire's plan to try and find him and makes it to Rockfort Island to rescue her, but instead, he finds Albert Wesker, who's gained some wacky superpowers from a unique strain of T-virus. Interestingly, he's not working with Umbrella at this point, he's just evil because he just likes it. Chris escapes and makes it to the Antarctic to save Claire. Steve sadly dies, and Chris and Claire avenge him by killing the defrosted and thoroughly monsterized Alexia. Next up, Resident Evil Dead Aim takes us to 2002, where terrorists use stolen T-virus samples to take over a cruise ship and demand money from the governments. Agents are sent from China and America to stop them, who team up and succeed. This game has absolutely no bearing on any of the overall story or lore, but it does exist, so I felt the need to mention it. And that brings us all the way up to Resident Evil 4. And if you're wondering what happened with things like the mold all the way back in the 1900s, you'd best hope they do an RE9 so I can cover the rest of the games. For now though, I'll leave you with the knowledge that Leon Kennedy is taken in by the Secret Service and intensively trained for a few years before going on several missions. In 2004, the president's daughter is kidnapped and there's only one man for the job. Leon is sent to Europe to find her, which is where Resident Evil 4 begins. Here on expLOREation, we like to go a little bit deeper than your average lore explored video. So let's take a little bit of a look into what the Resident Evil franchise could have in store for us in future. I'm very interested to know how the writing and story changes and expansions could change the future of the series from here. Mostly no matter if the Resident Evil 4 remake is good or bad. I'm just anxious what comes next. 5 and 6 are just bad games. Not fun to play, a complete mess. Are they going to just take the ideas of those games and go in a new direction entirely, or totally rewrite those stories and games from the ground up? In some ways, the worst case scenario is that they don't remake them at all, because then people might feel the need to subject themselves to the originals after the remake of 4 comes out. One shudders to think. Thanks for watching. If you have any thoughts on the upcoming remake, tell me in the comments below, and whilst you're down there, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the PC Gamer channel for more content just like this. This will be an outtake. Can I get a light on my face so I can see it better? Yeah, it's pretty whacked up. This is an average Friday night with the boys.
They are going to think that I've literally abused you.
This one at the top is especially like visceral.
It is, isn't it? It looks like someone's like, I don't know, taking a pole to your head.
See, it looks like you've given me like whiteout makeup to like make me look like I've lost blood, but that's just my skin tone.
I think it's just the weird key.
I think it is the key, yeah.
Key lighting.
Ooh, look at me, I'm fucked up. I'm fucked up, bro. Thank you for watching this PC Gamer video, gamers. Game on. Where's the thing?
Game on.
Game on, that's my thing now. That's what I say. I go, game on, epic gamers.
I don't think that should be a thing. I'm gonna change it.
What is it then? Tell me.
PC on. PC game.
Xbox on. What's a PC thing that I can say?
All aboard the steam train.
I think that's taken. I think
Yeah.
the steam train's taken.
Don't break your CPU pins. I don't know what's a PC thing.
A PC thing is game on, gamers. Yeah, I'm happy with this. This is good. This is fine. Content. This is good content.
Yeah.